Happy Wednesday, North Central Washington. Happy Wednesday, Wenatchee Valley, and a good-looking one at that. Look at that. It is Wednesday, the 12th day of February 2020. Dan Kuntz back at it again for another day of local television entertainment, local television information, and local TV. Some good stuff for you. Good show for today. I try to promise you a 5-star show. Not necessarily on Wednesdays, but we got some good stuff. Great conversation with our newest member of our television family, Jefferson Robbins, will be coming up in the back half of the program. Jefferson had a chance to join us from another media company back in July of last year, and he's been a great addition to our staff. And we're going to get to know Jefferson a little bit later on in this program in the back half of the show. Beautiful day today. We almost set a record on Tuesday. That close. We hit 55 degrees. Was our afternoon high as measured at Payne-Bourne Memorial Airport. That's the official measuring station for the Wenatchee Valley because it's got to be someplace, and so they picked up Payne-Bourne. It's been at Payne-Bourne since 1959, as a matter of fact, but 55 degrees, and our record high was 56 degrees, which we set back in 1967, so we almost tied our record high yesterday, and our friends in Ephrata did set a new record high. It was very warm, although it was quite breezy at times. We had the occasional wind gust above 40 miles an hour. Again, as measured up at Payne-Bourne Memorial Airport. Another beautiful day today, but this is kind of important. Over the last 24 hours since the last time you and I saw each other, National Weather Service is thinking we could actually get maybe a little bit of snow over the weekend. We'll give you some details. It's not going to be a big deal, but friendly reminder, it's still February. We have a lot of news to get to. Election results from last night's elections. Everything passed. We'll get to that in just a few minutes. Sports, we got highlights from the Wenatchee Panther girls and boys basketball games last night against West Valley. Our cameras were there. We'll have that when we get to sports. We also have, of course, the Obscura Holiday. Mike McNally's got an opinion. Feel better. My buddy Mike got a new hip yesterday. His old hip will be for sale on eBay. Just look it up. Also, we have some celebrity birthdays coming your way and lots of good stuff. It's 2 minutes, almost 3 minutes after the hour on just a gorgeous Wednesday morning. Let's take our tour. Let's see what we're doing around here. How are we looking today? We're looking good. Oh my. The cross camera is tilted up and pulled back. The acronym PTZ, these are called PTZ cameras, and the acronym is for pan, tilt, and zoom. I think it should stand for pretty tall, I don't know. That's a gorgeous view of Wenatchee, Birch Mountain and Badger Mountain dominating your view there, the valley down below. I got no complaints about this weather at all, especially when you compare this February to February of last year, which was not particularly pleasant, at least to feel like sunshine and mild temperatures, and who doesn't like that? From this point forward, of course, it's a guessing game. Megan, the producer of this outstanding program, gets to decide where we're going next, and she says, we're off to see Monument Hill. Yes, hey, good morning, Quincy. How are you today? Good to see you out there out in Quincy. Monument Hill is about the highest point out there. Once you get up to the top of the Quincy Rest area, after you go through the Trinidad area and then up through Crescent Bar and climb the hill, and boom, you're in the Columbia Basin at that particular point. And it's a beautiful view of Quincy. Lovely stuff out there. Gonna go out and I've endeavored, and I haven't made the arrangements yet, but I'm gonna go out and tape an interview at the new Quincy High School. It looks just phenomenal. I've only had a chance to see the football field, but whew, that looks like one fine facility. We'll see if we can make that happen. Camera number 3. Hello and good morning to Valley High. Hey, all right. Go, 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 Valley High. Beat the team. I don't know. There is no Valley High. It's an area, not a high school. Good morning, Valley High. Looking good out there. It's in color now, which means it's light enough. The camera is light enough. There's enough light lit into the lens so it switches from black and white to color. So we get to see our friends at Valley High on your way up to Blewett Pass. By the way, the only pass thing you need to worry about this morning is Stevens. A little bit of light snow there. I'll give you those details in just a second. And camera number 4 is a slow dissolve to, oh, wait a minute. Don't tell me. That's Nantipoc Ridge. Hey, I went 4 for 4. That almost never happens. Look at the contrails up top. It's the Lake Wenatchee area, of course. Some pretty good snowmobiling still to be had. Lake Wenatchee, of course, gets quite a bit of snow. Much more snow up in the Lake Wenatchee area than Wenatchee proper. So there's still time to do some snowmobiling. Don't know how the ice fishing is on Fish Lake. As we're getting longer and longer days. Sunrise this morning at 7:11, so it's just about 5 minutes away. Sunset tonight will be at 5:19. That means 10 hours and 8 minutes of daylight. And once again, 55 degrees yesterday, just 1 degree off the record. It was a beautiful day today, and we're in for a couple of more beautiful days before things get a little on the cattywampus side come the weekend. So that wraps up our tour around north central Washington with our Sky-Fi cameras. Thank you very much to our friends at Local Tel. And 6 minutes after the hour, from Patriot Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, they're going to give your home a hug. Here's your forecast from the National Weather Service. They say 49, but they said about 48, 49 yesterday, and we blew right past that. I wouldn't be surprised if we got to 50, 51 degrees. Lots of sunshine. There's a big ridge of high pressure that's still hanging around for one more day, and that's today. So it's going to be pretty much just like yesterday for today. It's going to be a beautiful day to get out and about, especially in the afternoon once it warms up. Go out and do the Apple Capital Recreational Loop Trail or whatever it is you want to do. And no wind today, unlike yesterday. So it's just going to be beautiful. Little patchy fog tonight. A few clouds come in. Overnight low about 29. Tomorrow, cloudy but dry. Going to cool down, only about 42 degrees. On Thursday night, partly cloudy, overnight low about 31. Friday, back to more sunshine and a high of 44. So it's a very light storm system. It's not going to affect us at all on Thursday. And then a more active storm system is going to start paying us a visit over the weekend. It starts on Friday night with a slight chance of rain, overnight low of about 32 degrees. The snow level is going to be about 1,700 feet. We should be just fine. Saturday's looking a little odd. Maybe a little light snow in the wee small hours of the morning, then it should switch over to rain. We are going to get precipitation. Most of it's going to be in the form of rain. If we get any snow at all, it's not going to stick around because look at the high on Saturday. We're looking at 45 degrees. Saturday night could get a little bit of light rain. It's possible. Could be mixed with snow. It's possible. 32 for the overnight low on Saturday night. Sunday, lots of sunshine, high of 45. It's going to be a little on the breezy side on a Sunday. Monday, for a holiday for a lot of people, Monday is President's Day. Sunshine at 45 degrees. Sunshine at 45 degrees on Tuesday. It feels more like the middle of March than the middle of February. No complaints at all about the forecast. I'm going to take the afternoon off and enjoy that lovely warm sunshine. I got used to it down in Arizona. 8 minutes after the hour to take you up to the major mountain pass. It's pretty quiet up there right now. That's a live shot of Snoqualmie Pass. You're good to go. No advisories, no restrictions. The roadway is bare and wet. Stevens, as you're going to see, has some snow on the roadway there. They have a traction tire advisory on US 2. Stevens Pass with some compact snow and ice on the roadway. There's that shot there so you can see. But that's really right at the summit. For the most part, heading up and heading down Stevens, you're good to go. It's just that last, 3-4 miles as you really make the final push over the top of the summit of Stevens Pass is when you're going to run the snow and ice, and then you'll be good to go. But there's still a traction tire advisory, and that makes sense. By the way, people have asked us who decides on this, whether it's an advisory or restriction. State Patrol gets to make that call. They send troopers over the top of all the passes, and then they phone it in, and so that's a State Patrol decision on whether traction tires are advised, required, or not at all. Finally, Blue Pass. No advisories, no restrictions. It's down the road you go. Pretty quiet today. If you're going to take Stevens and you looked at that photo and you say, I don't know, it's going to be fine. Give it another hour. Let the plows do the work, and you'll be good to go. No snow really at all in the forecast for today, tonight. Thursday, snow on the mountain passes, a couple of inches. There's two things where I want to point out if you're going to travel over the major mountain passes. Thursday night, they're going to get some snow. 2 to 4 inches of snow on Thursday night. The big thing is Friday night into Saturday. It's going to start snowing Friday night in the Cascades, and it's going to last all the way through till Saturday night. Total snow accumulations in the Cascades above a foot possible beginning Friday night and lasting all day Saturday. Heads up on that, but right now, you're fine. 9 minutes after the hour. Going to take a break and come back with your news. You're watching Wake Up Wenatchee Valley. We're broadcasting live this morning from Studio 7 in downtown Wenatchee on the NCWLIFE Channel.
Hi, my name is Jim Heinlein, owner and agent at Springwater Insurance Group, formerly known as Senior Insurance Services. There's so much new this year. In fact, we brought in a new consultant, Harley, to help us with all our Medicare changes. So if you have questions about how Plan F's going away or what drug plan should I use this year, give us a call at Springwater Insurance Group, and Harley and I will solve those problems for you. 888-2600.
Is search engine optimization right for my business? Maybe. Studies show the first and second search results get 50% of all the clicks. But you have to fight national chains to get there. If the user has to scroll down to find you, tough luck. You could hide a dead body on page 2 and the whole zombie apocalypse on page 3. Or you could spend less and get an ad in the Impact Big Print phone book, giving local businesses a chance to shine.
Impact Directories. Bigger print, better book.
11 minutes after the hour, the sun has risen on a beautiful Wednesday. 34 degrees outside of our studios. Will be 50, 51 maybe. Going to be a beautiful day today. A little unsettled, though, on the weekend. Here's what's making headlines. We're going to start out with election results, and they're all, with one exception, and that's the Lake Wenatchee Fire and Rescue. Everything's passing with flying colors. These are all levies, no bonds. So a simple majority passes. We'll start out with the Cashmere School District, a replacement educational program and operation levy. No problems at all there. Passing easily, 929 votes to 489 votes. Lake Chelan School District had a couple of levies up and running, and they're passed without any problems at all. Take a look at that. That's the replacement educational programs and operations levy for the Lake Chelan School District, easily passing as well, and also another levy. They had two that they had to vote on in the Lake Chelan School District, and those passed again with flying colors. Most of these are just continuous funding of things that already happened. We'll get to that in just a little bit. Aniat, let's take you to Aniat and see what was going on there. Aniat had two things on the ballot: a renewed educational programs and operations levy passing 266 to 185, and a $6 million bond proposal passing 260 to 186. These are going to pass all rather easily. The one non-school related thing in all of these elections from yesterday was Chelan County Fire District number 9. This is up at Lake Wenatchee. They wanted to raise the property tax for those people who live in Chelan County Fire District number 9 to bring back services that were cut, and they said, yep, we'll do it. 467 to 112, easily passing there. In the Douglas County area, just a couple of we want to point out in our viewing area, both the Arundel School District renewal of the expiring levy and the Waterville renewal of their expiring levy, both passing with flying colors. Absolutely no drama at all there. By the way, also in the outlying areas of Douglas County, Mansfield and Bridgeport, Brewster, they all had levies, school levies on the ballot, and they all passed easily. So everything that was on the ballot yesterday in North Central Washington passed. Most of it by sizable damages. Speaking of damages, on to more news. East Wenatchee police are investigating a case of vandalism that could be classified as a hate crime. A vehicle owner discovered his car damaged and spray painted with a homophobic slur. This happened on Friday morning in the 1400 block of North Baker. Repair costs are estimated close to $3,000. Police are seeking information about the incident. If you saw or heard anything, call Rivercom at 663-9911. Well, Chelan Douglas Regional Port Authority CEO Jim Kuntz says he expects a lot of new business development to occur this year in Wenatchee's downtown warehouse district. As you know by now, the port purchased over 100,000 square feet of old fruit storage warehouses from Lineage Logistics. The intent is marketing the area for commercial development. So far, Kuntz says there's been a lot of interest.
The idea that the port commissioners had is to acquire that, break it up in smaller parcels, and be able to get it back into the private sector. Not everybody in the community can write a check for $4.5 million. And so, especially the private development community. So we were concerned that these properties could sit for long periods of time. So
break them up into condominiums.
Exactly, and then let the private business community come in. And so what's happened to date is the phone has been ringing off the hook. There is
really?
strong demand for Lineage South.
Kuntz says the port is currently in the process of subdividing the properties that they just purchased into smaller parcels, and they are going to work to establish a design criteria. He said in a recent NCWLIFE Channel interview that the plans are on the fast track for development.
We have 3 different nodes. We have a north node, a south node, and a middle node. And so we'll probably do one at a time. And the north node is the one that will go first. That's right on Arundel Avenue, across the street from Badger Mountain Brewery. Those 2 buildings, lots of interest. And so we're excited. We think in the next year or 2, all the buildings will be turned back to private developers and businesses, and you'll see a funky, fun district down there that the port will have participate an important part in.
Jim Kuntz is Steve Hare's most recent guest in Steve's program called In Focus. He's also, if you want to check it out, he also talked about the status of Payne-Born Airport's ongoing efforts to get a direct flight from Payne-Born to San Francisco. You can watch the entire interview on our website at NCWLIFE.com, and that interview will air in its entirety on this program tomorrow. Well, the Wenatchee School Board is trying to set guidelines on how their members interact with the superintendent and with each other. We're talking about the board itself, of course. The board has 3 newly elected or appointed members, and they spent more than 45 minutes at their most recent workshop going over 11 norms that would guide its future debates, as well as 14 operating principles. Among other steps, the guidelines would narrow the use of personal electronics during school board meetings and keep board members from communicating outside of meetings with administrators, staff, or teachers, with the exception of superintendent Paul Gordon. The norms also state that board members should not, quote, press narrow personal agendas. And finally, on this Wednesday morning, the Parks Department at the City of Chelan says, hey, we're doing a better job of keeping track what's going on up at our golf course, a pretty good one too, I might add. I played it. That's in the wake of a state audit that was released Monday. It said as of 2018, the pro shop at the Lake Chelan Municipal Golf Course wasn't appropriately monitoring its refunds, employees' discounts, and its inventory. Now, no losses were identified, but the state auditor's office said practices at the golf course exposed the city to too much risk of theft or mismanagement. The city says in 2019 it did set up policies and procedures to prevent future losses. Among other steps, employee discounts in the pro shop at the golf course have been eliminated. We don't get too many employee discounts around here at the NCWLIFE Channel, but we get nice clothing, courtesy of Solion Broadcasting, LLC. Speaking of a guy whose on-air wardrobe is provided by Solion Broadcasting, LLC, to preview tonight's news. Here's the anchor, Grant Olson.
Good morning, Dan. Coming up tonight on the NCWLIFE Evening News, we'll give you a preview of this weekend's Wenatchee Valley Humane Society's annual auction. Legislation sponsored by 12th District Representative Keith Gaynor passes the Finance Committee. I'll have a look at our mild and wet North Central Washington weather forecast, and Eric Granstrom will have highlights of last night's Wenatchee West Valley doubleheader basketball matchup. That and more coming up tonight at 5, 6, and 10 on the NCWLIFE Evening News. We hope you'll join us then. Dan?
Thanks, Grant. I never miss the news, and neither should you. Look at the bottom of your screen, all the different ways for you to get a hold of us. We had a really nice email from a viewer yesterday, Susan. Thanks, Susan, for the compliments. Keep them coming. You have input, you got a news tip, you want to drop a line and say hi. This is as much your station as it is ours. We'd love to hear from you. You can pick up the phone and give us a call at the number you see at the bottom of your screen. Go to our Facebook page and give us a big old thumbs up and drop us a line via Facebook Messenger. Email us directly, news@ncwlife.com, or if you go to our website, ncwlife.com, you'll see the Contact Us icon. If you click on that, you fill out the form, push send, and you can drop us a line. We love to hear from our viewers, and we do hear from our viewers. 19 minutes after the hour. Going to take a break. When we come back, we got sports, the obscure holiday, today in history, some celebrity birthdays. Everybody's entitled to Mike Magnotti's opinion, and my conversation with Jefferson Robbins, a fine journalist indeed. All coming up between now and the top of the hour. You're watching Wake Up Wenatchee Valley on the NCWLIFE Channel.
Badger Mountain Brewing is proud to announce the grand opening of our new kitchen. Come try out our new menu featuring fabulous steaks, prime rib, gourmet burgers, and seafood grilled up by experienced meat master Chef Galen Goodman. To complement your mouth-watering meal, Badger Mountain Brewing features 14 in-house crafted beers, an alcohol-free root beer infused with 11 different herbs and spices, 3 different ciders, and a great wine selection. Don't miss out on the best meats and the best brews down at Badger Mountain Brewing.
Located at 1 Orondo Avenue across the tracks from the Pybus Market.
Highlander Grill and Golf Course is known as one of the finest wedding venues in the Wenatchee area. You do not have to be a member to come to Highlander. Highlander Golf Course offers a first-class backdrop for your wedding day. Our friendly professional staff will ensure your wedding and reception is picture perfect, from every moment leading up to the I do's to when the lights go down at the end of your reception. Hi, I'm Shalane, site coordinator for Highlander Grill. Give me a call to schedule your event today.
Back at it here at 20 minutes after the hour. Temperatures drop down a little bit. This is tendency to happen. Once the sun comes up, the temperature drops a couple of degrees. We're down to 32 outside of our studios, but lots of sunshine. High right around 50 today and no wind. Get out and enjoy. In sports, the Wenatchee Panther girls basketball team played one of their best games last night against a West Valley Ram team that's trying to close out the season as the number 2 seed in the Big Nine heading into the playoffs. We'll pick up our highlight package with about 3 minutes left in the game with the call, Grant Olson and Steve Sandman on the NCWLIFE Channel.
Here's Sanford. Now to Crawley. Crawley's going to take the shot for 3. It's good and ties this up. But fortunately picked up by Sanford. Underneath, here's Peters all by herself. Let that layup up and good. Panthers take the lead, 57-55.
Good move by Peters, a spin move down low. Found herself wide open to put the Panthers in the lead.
Winslow, far side. Shot taken, no good. Landis, the putback, good. And that was just kind of a lax in blocking out there on the Panthers, and we're tied up at 57. Panthers need to hold on here, 12 on the shot clock. Winslow, Brennan, she's had the hot hand in the second half. 3 off the glass, good! How about that with 10 seconds? Panthers better hurry. Get it down court, Sanford. Throws it too far over the head of Crawley and out of bounds, and this will be West Valley basketball with 5 seconds left. And now a baseball pass all the way down court. Here's Curtis, 1 second, and that's gonna do it as the Panthers come up just short. Our final score here tonight, West Valley 60, Wenatchee 57.
Yeah, Rams get the victory behind the 20 points from the aforementioned Miss Landis. Wenatchee was led by the 15 points from Emily Redman, and Maddie Peters poured in 11 points. Also in Big Nine play last night, take a gander at the Les Schwab scoreboard. Sunnyside ended Eastmont's season with a 53-26 victory, and Ephrata is out of the CWAC District Tournament. They lost to Grandview last night, 48-56. Haley Van Lith is now the second leading scorer in the history of girls basketball in this state. She scored 39 last night to lead Kashmir past Okanagan 72-32, and Antioch celebrated senior night in style with a 62-20 win over Eastham. The Wenatchee West Valley boys basketball game got off to a slow start last night. Neither team really were able to find their rhythm for a while. The Rams led at the half. Led at the half 26-19. The Panthers made a run down the stretch, came up just a little bit short once again with the call. Steve Sandman and Grant Olson on the NCWLIFE Channel.
There's Logan Nelson. The shot can't get the roll. Rebound to Dory. Just out-hustled everyone to the ball. Now it's Long for 3. No good. Nelson, the putback, good. Boy, Kinlaw can't believe he missed that shot. Now it's Long. Spins, elbow, shot over Turner, good. Under a minute left to go third quarter. Nelson, left elbow, nice pass down low. Lloydhammer up and in. Baseline, good ball movement again by the West Valley Rams. Vandenbrink has to take it. Boy, a runner, 1 foot shot, good, and that will end our third quarter of play. Kinlock under the basket to Matheny with Nelson on him. Kicks it out, Funk. He'll take the shot, good for 3. Picks up the loose ball and hustles it across the timeline. Good no-look pass, left side. Dory, 3, good.
Well, that's one of those where you just knew when he did the no-look pass that to complete that, something good was going to come out of it and give the fans a thrill in a hurry.
Dorsett to Funk underneath. There's Turner. Too hard, no good. Good defense by Chase Lloydhammer. Blauman back the other way. Drives into the lane. Takes a right-handed layup. Good. To Dory. Here's Lloydhammer. Back to Long. Blauman. Three-pointer on the way. Good. Down by 5. Here's Blauman. Free throw line to Lloydhammer. Back to Blauman. Who's going to take the shot? Blauman does. No good. Matheny the rebound. Now to Dorsett. Down court Kinlock, and he's going to hold it up there and just be fouled by a Panther, I'm assuming, and yes, he will be.
Those of you watching at home.
Forced shot by Long. He wanted the foul call, and that wasn't a very good foul shot at all, as the Panthers will just let the clock run out, and that's how we'll end up. Our final score here at Wenatchee High School tonight, West Valley 45 and the Wenatchee Panthers 39.
Garrett Long led all scorers. He had 16 points for Wenatchee. Chase Lloydhammer chipped in for 11 points. Logan Kinlock led the Rams with 13 points. Other action, Isaac Wellborn scored 23 points. Lane Keller added 15. Eastmont wrapped up their regular season with a 72-66 win down at Sunnyside. And in a preview of Saturday's district championship game, which we'll have right here, by the way, Kashmir beat Okanagan 55-46 to end the Caribou Trail League regular season. The Prep boys basketball schedule for tonight. Let's take a look at it. In boys tournament play, Manson will host Orville. It's the first round of the Central Washington B League tournament. Also in a first-round loser-out game tonight, Liberty Bell plays at Bridgeport. And in the CWAC district tournament, you got Ephrata hosting Ellensburg at 7 o'clock. College basketball, the Wenatchee Valley Lady Knights have won 6 of their past 7 games. They hope to extend a 2-game winning streak tonight. North Idaho will be at the W.B. Smith Gymnasium. They'll tip it off at 5:30. The Wenatchee Valley men hope to exact revenge on North Idaho tonight at 7:30. Second game of the doubleheader. The Cardinals snapped that 10-game WVC winning streak back on January 15th. North Idaho leads the conference. They're 11-0. The Knights are in third place at 8-3. Well, today is the day. Pitchers and catchers report at the Mariners training camp in beautiful Peoria, Arizona. Seattle made a move, by the way, to add a veteran to its ranks yesterday. They signed a minor league contract to Carlos Gonzalez. He's been around for a while. This is according to USA Today's Bob Nightingale. The 34-year-old Gonzalez has agreed to try out for the Mariners. If he makes the opening day roster, he'll be paid $750,000, which is exactly what I make a year. Gonzalez was a 3-time All-Star, 3-time National League Gold Glove winner. He played 10 years with Colorado. They let him go. He signed on with Cleveland. They let him go. He signed on with the Cubs. They let him go. Seattle is unsure of the future of Mitch Haniger, by the way, who recently underwent sports hernia surgery. Mitch hasn't played since last June after rupturing a testicle on a foul ball. Ouch! Malik Smith is the only current outfielder on Seattle's roster with any kind of extensive major league experience. Pitchers and catchers report today. Position players next week. The first Cactus League game a week from Saturday against San Diego. Opening day, 43 days away. And those are just some of the games that people are playing on this February 12th. The Obscura holiday, and there's any number of websites that I go to look these up because, of course, if it's on the internet, you know it's true. There's nothing today except it's Lincoln's birthday. Hi, Abe. How are you? And Lincoln's birthday is still celebrated in some states as a legal holiday. For years and years, of course, you got Lincoln's birthday and Washington's birthday off, and they combined it to President's Day, and that's how the federal holiday is observed. But there are states that still observe Lincoln's birthday as a standalone. Among those states, no surprise here, Illinois celebrates Lincoln's birthday, as well they should. Of course, it's the land of Lincoln. Missouri, California, it's really big in California. There's a lot of school districts and governments in California that are not open today. They celebrate Lincoln's birthday in Arizona, Indiana, New York, and Connecticut. But ironically enough, Lincoln's birthday is not celebrated in Kentucky, which is where he was born and lived for the first 21 years of his life. So in some states, it's Lincoln's birthday. In other states, it's not. As a holiday, I should say, Lincoln's birthday will never move from February 12th. I hope. That would be weird. Happy birthday, Abe. We'll get to more about Honest Abe here in just a couple of minutes. It's the 29 minutes after the hour. Let's do Today in History, shall we, on this 12th day of February. One of the greatest musical pieces ever composed in this country, Rhapsody in Blue by George Gershwin, made its world premiere on this date 96 years ago today. The idea was to combine traditional classical music with contemporary jazz. Paul Whiteman, the top band leader at the time, commissioned the work. George Gershwin wrote it. It made its world debut. Gershwin himself played the piano. You hear the first bars and you just know what it is, and it's such a great piece of music. Critics in 1924 hated it. You can't do this. Jazz is jazz. Jazz is terrible. Classical is where it's at. Well, critics were wrong. By the way, Rhapsody in Blue is now in the public domain. It entered the public domain on New Year's of this year, which means you can get together with 104 of your favorite classical musicians and play Rhapsody in Blue, and you don't have to pay George Gershwin's estate anything. There you go. Rhapsody in Blue. Played it last night when I got home from basketball. It's still phenomenal stuff. What really started the civil rights movement? Was there one single thing? Was it the lynching of Emmett Till? Was it Rosa Parks saying, "I'm tired and I'm not going to get up off the bus"? Could also be what happened tragically to Isaac Woodard on this date 74 years ago today, February 12, 1946. He had just been honorably discharged from the United States Army. He was a war hero in World War II. He was on his bus home in his Army uniform. Isaac Woodward was forcibly removed from the bus in South Carolina. He was riding in. He was taken to police in an alleyway not far from the bus stop, where they beat him with nightsticks. Then he was thrown in the town jail, and overnight, while he was thrown in the town jail in Batesburg, South Carolina, the chief of the Batesburg, South Carolina police beat Isaac Woodward repeatedly in the eyes until Isaac Woodward became blind. The local authorities in Batesburg, South Carolina did nothing. The story didn't even become national news for 7 months until finally, since the people in South Carolina weren't going to do anything, the federal government stepped in and they tried the chief of police. His name was Linwood Shull. They tried him for assaulting Mr. Woodward. Linwood Shull, the chief of police, on the witness stand said, yeah, I beat him in the head until he was blind. After 15 minutes of deliberation, the all-white jury in South Carolina acquitted the chief of police. Happened on this date 74 years ago today. February 12th, 1994, 26 years ago today. There you go. There's a nice little robbery. 4 thieves break into the National Gallery in Norway and steal a copy, a painting, the famous Scream. They stole it. Timing was perfect. The opening ceremonies of the Olympic Games in Lillehammer, Norway was that day. And so they took their print of the Scream, worth a lot of money, and they took it from a secure part of the museum and they put it into a less secure part of the museum so people could celebrate the culture of Norway. And these 4 thieves said, this is a good idea, let's take it. They even left a note, said, thanks for the lousy security. They held the painting for hostage. They wanted $1 million back in 1994. Norway said no. They set up a sting operation with the British police. 2 years later, they caught the guys. They arrested the 4 guys. They tried the 4 guys. They convicted the 4 guys. And then their convictions were thrown out because the British agents involved in the sting to get the painting back entered Norway under false pretenses, and their convictions were overturned. But they got the painting back. So easy it was. Just take the ladder, climb in, grab it. See ya. Happened on this date back in 1994. Finally, 21 years ago today, 1999, February 12th, Bill Clinton acquitted. Bill Clinton acquitted, not guilty, of all charges in his impeachment. There you go. 33 minutes after the hour. Birthdays. Charles Darwin and Abraham Lincoln are exact contemporaries. They were born on the same day, February 12th, 1809. Charles Darwin lived to be the age of 73 and changed the way people thought about how we got here and how we developed. Of course, evolution. He is the father of evolution. Charles Darwin was born in the state in 1809, lived for a long time, considering died at the age of 73. There he is. Hiya, Chuck. His book is still pretty interesting reading, by the way, The Origin of Species. We mentioned this before. Abe Lincoln, also born on February 12th, 1809, became the first president to be murdered, shot to death at Ford's Theater in April of 1865, died at the age of 56. Ironically enough, on April 14th, 1865, Abraham Lincoln signed the legislation to create the United States Secret Service, and then that night he was shot to death. But of course, the Secret Service in the 1860s was supposed to do like money laundering, and they were more and more of a federal money organization. It wasn't until 2 more presidents got shot and killed, James Garfield and William McKinley, when they finally decided that the Secret Service, in addition to counterfeiting and stuff like that, was probably a good idea that the president have a bodyguard of some kind. Lincoln is the only president who ever obtained a patent. Lincoln, of course, never slept in the Lincoln bedroom. The Lincoln bedroom, when Abraham Lincoln was the president, the Lincoln bedroom in the White House was his office. Now, of course, it's the Lincoln bedroom, but he never slept in it. He hated being called Abe. If you called him Abe, you were in seriously trouble. He preferred to be called simply Lincoln, or Mr. Lincoln, or President Lincoln. Hated the word Abe. And he was the first president, the very first president born outside of the original 13 states. Abraham Lincoln. Omar Bradley, born in this state in 1893, died at the age of 88 back in 1981. In 1950, he was promoted to 5-star general, General of the Army. He is the last of 9 people to ever have obtained 5-star rank. Nobody will ever, in my opinion, will ever get to another 5-star rank in the armed forces. He was the special advisor to the producers of the movie Patton. When they made the movie Patton in the late 1960s, the producers in 20th Century Fox wanted access to George Patton's personal papers, and the Patton family said no, and so they went to Omar Bradley, who became the special advisor to the film Patton. And ironically enough, Omar Bradley didn't much care for George Patton. He thought he was a showboat and an egotist, which of course he was. So it was ironic that the man who helped guide the movie Patton didn't much care for him, but Omar Bradley was a great man. And my favorite Omar Bradley story of all, after he retired, Omar Bradley moved to Beverly Hills, California. He lived in Bel Air, as a matter of fact. Omar Bradley did. His next door neighbor in the 1960s, Elvis Presley, and they became friends. They would visit each other's houses and shoot the bull. Elvis and General Bradley. Omar Bradley, born in the state in 1863. Lorne Greene, we chastely looked and we finally struck Bonanza. Yep, always be known as Pa Cartwright on the iconic 60s Western Bonanza. He was also on Battlestar Galactica. Wasn't so good in that. Lorne Greene, born in the state in 1915, died in 1987 at the age of 72. The legendary Bill Russell is 86 years old today, the winningest basketball player ever, and one of the half-dozen still living American athletic legends. Happy birthday, Bill Russell. I had a chance to meet Bill Russell. I was going to tell the story. I don't have enough time. Happy 86th Bill Russell. Still lives and has for the last 40 years or so in Mercer Island. And happy birthday, Michael McDonald of the Doobie Brothers. He was 68 years old. He is 68 years old today. Of course, the Doobie Brothers will be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in just a few more days. All right, going to take a break. Going to come back with my Benotti's opinion on my conversation with Jefferson Robbins. You're watching Wake Up Wenatchee Valley on the NCWLIFE Channel. Family roles change with time. You may find yourself being an unpaid caregiver to a loved one. Caregiving can be rewarding, but also stressful. Taking care of yourself is vital. Aging and Adult Care of Central Washington has low or no cost services for unpaid caregivers, such as in-home support, care supplies, and counseling. Connect in your local area by calling Aging and Adult Care at 800-572-4459 and mention you're interested in caregiver support.
My name is Lacey Haggerty, and I'm a nurse midwife with Columbia Valley Community Health. I love all aspects of my job because it is a profession that's very committed to empowering women to make decisions in their health care that feel best for them. It's incredibly valuable to me as a midwife that I get to take care of women throughout their whole lifespan. I hope to see you at a future visit because I know you'll love having midwifery care.
Welcome back to Wake Up Wenatchee Valley. I am Dan Kuntz. It is January of 1942, and San Francisco is a city on edge. Just a short month after the Japanese Imperial Navy bombed Pearl Harbor, the people who lived in San Francisco were afraid that they would be next. That has absolutely nothing to do with today's conversation. To my immediate left is the newest member of our NCWLIFE television family, Jefferson Robbins. We finally got you on TV. Hello, my friend.
Hello, Dan. Good to see you again.
It's good to see you. Jefferson and I go way back. Just for the record, when I was in radio back in the late 80s, early 90s, Jefferson came from the land of Lincoln, moved here to the Pacific Northwest, landed a job at the Wenatchee World as a entertainment reporter for the late lamented Go magazine, I guess, and he would make regular appearances on my radio program. That's how you and I got to know each other. So let's begin with a little bit about Jefferson Robbins, a little bit about your background.
Well, before I met Dan Kuntz and my life changed forever. I grew up in Illinois, as he mentioned, and was a reporter there for a number of newspapers. Came out to Wenatchee in 2000 or so because I liked mountains and we didn't have a whole lot of those in the Illinois area. There was this glacier that came through. It's a long story. But in any event, I really enjoyed the chance to stretch here and work on cultural and artistic and entertainment stories for the Wenatchee World. But I spread my wings yet further when I started reporting on courts, government affairs, Left the Wenatchee World in 2019 to move into online news, online broadcasting, which, as you know, is kind of a fraught territory. It's still new territory for a lot of media companies. But I was lucky enough to end up here with NCWLIFE starting last May, I want to say May of 2019.
When in your formative years did you decide, I want to report the news, I want to tell stories, I think I'm good at it and I like doing it? When was that seed planted in little Jefferson's head?
Well, I think a lot of journalists start out thinking, I'm going to write fiction stories for a living, and then you realize that's, a steady paycheck is more likely to come from working in the journalism field. I still like to write fiction. Don't write it for NCWLIFE, although some would argue about that. But working in journalism is a way to sort of craft your writing technique as a whole. You learn how to tell a story that has real impact, it's immediate, and it matters to people who are reading it and who are consuming it by television or online or whatever medium it comes through.
You have a journalism mentor, somebody whose columns you would always read or stories you would always read or on television or whatever the case may be?
No, not particularly. As far as journalism, I mean, I grew up reading Hemingway, who worked as a journalist and worked in a very short form kind of journalism, and that fit into his fiction, as everybody knows. But I can't say that I looked at a newspaper reporter and said, that's the character I want to be. I did really like the movie The Insider with Russell Crowe, which is about TV, 60 Minutes, trying to break the story of how the cigarette and tobacco industry worked very hard to addict all of its customers. That has a real kind of gut punch, and there's sequences in it that show you how journalism is baked in the kitchen, how the sausage gets made, I guess. And I think that's a pretty influential movie for anybody who's thinking about this career or who's lived in it.
I know this is going to sound like a big umbrella, but how does one decide what is news and what is not news? Because we are solicited on a regular basis here from just generic press releases about an art show or whatever, as opposed to, and then we have something considerably more serious, be it crime related or scandals or people skimming from the accounts of governmental offices. What's news?
The old adage is, if it bleeds, it leads, which is to say that, unfortunately, violence, although people say, I don't want to see as much bad news in my paper or as much bad news in my broadcast, that's where people tune in. That's where people pick up and read. So you start from that and say, well, an immediate dramatic impact is splashy and people are wanting to read about that. But the job of a news or a media organization is to sort of help a community tell its story to itself. And so if you work from that philosophy, you find lots of stories that matter that might otherwise slip under the radar. Somebody might not think the story is important until they see it for the first time and read about its ramifications or see how it affects individuals in their community. So you got to start thinking always about the human factor. Whom does this help? Whom does this harm? What are the possible consequences of this issue that you're investigating? So I guess there's no one real good framework, but you have to start with the question of, what does this do for the community, or what does it say about the community?
One of the basic bedrocks of journalism and what is news is it's a deviation of the norm. And I explain that, why don't you do more good news? And my standard boilerplate reply would be, Mount St. Helens sitting there and doing nothing is not news. Mount St. Helens erupting and killing 87 people is news. It's the deviation from the norm. So news, as a general rule of thumb, is inherently negative, is it not?
It is, it can be, but there's also an argument to be made that, again, as I said, a community telling its own story to itself, things like what Steve Hare does with In Focus, where you're talking with one individual member of the community, you learn that person's story and how they're making a difference or having an influence over their community, or how their community has influenced them in turn. There was a history story I did with Caitlin Hedersheet, one of our producers, concerning the polio epidemic of the 1950s, and a nurse, Carmen Boston, I'm sorry, not a nurse, but a physical therapist, Carmen Bossenbrock, who worked really, really hard to make sure kids could come back from that. That's news that might not be otherwise noted if we hadn't, gone and found those stories, if we didn't say the human factor means as much as the dramatic impact or the big splash.
How do you handle, and you've had many of them in your career, how do you handle a scoop? You get inside word and you're the only person that this person told. They said, I'm on background, whatever the case may be, but you're now sitting on a story that when this story is written and disseminated and gathered, that this is going to create a lot of buzz. handle a lot of news. How do you handle a scoop? And you've had a lot of them.
Well, the first approach is to ask the same question of many different people many times, to know that you have your arms around the issue, you have your arms around the story, and not to be pressed, I think. I mean, we think of scoops as being immediate. This outfit got ahead of the other outfits in reporting this story. We were first there. We were the first ones on the scene. That's important. It's not as crucial as just being correct and understanding the ramifications of what you're reporting. A story may have ripple effects that you don't see if you just get a call on the phone, ask a couple of questions, jot down some notes, say this is a big story, and then publish. Although in the online world, we're tempted and rewarded for big clicks. And a big dramatic headline gets those big clicks, but it's not always the best use of our resources or the best service to the individual who sees that news on the other end.
And to that end, we talk about we always have to keep in mind the ramifications of what we're reporting on. You remember a couple of weeks ago, I think we all do, the incident, the slow speed chase that began in East Wenatchee ended up in Wenatchee near the Save Mart parking lot, where the suspect in this case set himself on fire, and that led, obviously, it was a significant story. He is still alive. He is at Harborview Medical Center. If he recovers, he's got a long road to go. The story has a lot of different angles to it, which brings us to the Public Disclosure Act and asking for video or information from various governmental agencies or law enforcement, as the case may be. Because you asked, well, I'll let you take it from there. First of all, how that begins, we want to see dash cam footage or body cam footage from a police officer or a police cruiser. Walk me through that process, and then we'll talk about the video.
Right. The Public Records Act in Washington State allows anybody, not just the media organization, to ask for and receive public records. And public records are defined as any record that is created or kept by a public agency. Your city, your county, your village, the state. I go to the different police departments, and there were four. All four Valley departments were involved in this particular incident, and said, I would like to see all videos, photos, and other records from this incident. I usually have an incident number, which is assigned to the case. They have 5 days to respond affirmatively or negatively, or to ask for more time. In the most recent case, the Chelan County Sheriff's Office and the Douglas County Sheriff's Office were the two agencies to respond to me first, and I gathered video from them. They have leeway to redact certain elements of a record if it's not disclosable under the Public Records Act. The videos that I got do not show, for instance, anybody receiving medical attention. That's a violation of a person's privacy as a patient. They do not have all of the conversations between police officers concerning the situation, because they're allowed to, redact certain things in an investigation. And so the videos that I got are pretty striking and interesting to watch. I don't have everything that was recorded that night, but I do have a reasonable amount of footage that shows really what happened. And the idea behind asking for that wasn't necessarily for me to make a big splash, but to say, is this narrative that I've heard about this incident the correct narrative? How do I validate what I'm being told about what happened on January 27th in this low-speed chase that went from East Wenatchee to North Wenatchee Avenue?
And we have that video in an edited form that we are going to show you. And as we show you this video, and Jefferson and I are going to talk, Jefferson is going to explain why you will not see, at least on this television station, the video in its entirety, and it's for a very good reason. Megan, go ahead and roll the tape. Jefferson, I'll let you take it.
This starts out actually earlier in the evening on January 27th. The individual is a man in his 40s who had a very dramatic domestic violence incident involving his former spouse and his family. From there, police went looking for him. They found him on Eastmont Avenue, and he would not stop. The chase wasn't a high-speed chase. It went up to about the 40 to 45 mile an hour speed, but it did go through downtown Wenatchee very late at night on the 27th. One of the Chelan County officers did what's called, you just saw there, a pit maneuver, where he stopped the car by sideswiping it. At this point, the suspect ignited substance in the car, probably gasoline, set himself on fire. That's the portion that we're not showing you right here, where the video freezes. The next thing you see on these videos is really just the efforts of police to help. We see the local officers trying to approach, grabbing fire extinguishers from their cars, running up, essentially to try and help this gentleman. One of the things that Ray Coble, the East Wenatchee Assistant Police Chief, said to me was that we wish we'd had more time to talk to him. We wish we'd had more time to convince him not to hurt himself or anyone else. And I feel like that's the real lesson here, that people are in need of help, and it was comforting, I think, in a chaotic situation to see people trying to help, even though this person had apparently gone to serious extremes that might have harmed himself or someone else.
And again, we're not going to show you the video in its entirety because it is fairly graphic. We have seen it. We are not going to make it available for people to watch on any of our platforms anyway. And this is something that we deal with on a fairly regular basis. And I bring up another example, as you well know, if you watch Wake Up Wenatchee Valley or even the news. We have what we call our PTZ cameras, which are on towers all over the Wenatchee Valley and all over north central Washington. And occasionally we catch something that would be disturbing to other people. And by that I mean a house fire, for instance, or a significant traffic accident. We have to look at this and we have to say, okay, this person's house is on fire, and we have a clean shot of it, of a house being burning down. Well, this is somebody's house with possessions inside of it, and they might not even know their house is on fire. So we have to look at that video, oftentimes very live from the stream, and decide whether we put it on our Facebook page or on our website as a live stream as his house is burning down, because this guy might be getting a haircut and not even know it.
Right. Right, and people probably rightly are concerned about issues of surveillance, knowing that there are cameras in public places now, knowing that a lot of their motions are recorded, and I think we have to be cognizant of that as well. Your privacy is your privacy, and although video makes a big splash and does get hits and does get clicks, there's a responsibility to the parties who are collecting that, and I think the Public Records Act is one of those barriers that sort of inserts itself and says, here's your responsibilities of what to do with that record.
People abuse the Public Records Act, don't they? I mean, you hear from law enforcement, somebody sends me 300 requests, and I don't even have somebody on staff that can even handle one. You get that? Is that the number one thing, Jefferson? I like you, I'm going to help you, but I can't get it to you for another month.
There are some slowdowns because of the volumes of requests. There are some municipalities that take extra steps that I don't necessarily agree with, where they say we're going to constrain our interpretation of the Public Records Act to a great degree. I don't think that serves anyone well. It's possible to abuse any aspect of the law, any mechanism in the law, and the Public Records Act, if it's working as a law, is subject to the same kind of exploitations. But tightening it up, as a reporter, I feel like if there's a public record, I should have it. I feel like I should be able to give that to the public if it's necessary. I don't feel like we need to close that loophole any more than it really already is in Washington State anyway.
There's I didn't say it, I wish I had, but there's a saying that's been quite popular over the last 10 years. The news, today's news in the year 2020 is neither better nor worse than it ever has been. There's just more of it. Do you agree with that?
I feel like our thresholds for news get lowered a little bit. People will see something, again, that they think is very dramatic and post about it on Facebook, post about it on different media saying, did you see this? Why isn't the mainstream media reporting on this? Well, one of the aspects of the mainstream media, which I guess includes us, is to have sort of a gatekeeping effect, as we saw here. I mean, there's just certain things that either don't rise to the level of news in our judgment, or in our judgment would disturb people and do more harm than good. I feel like we should be allowed to make that call. I feel like we have a responsibility.
I asked my cohort and your cohort, Cal Fitzsimmons. I'll ask you the same question. The question simply is this: Cal's been a professional journalist since he got out of the Navy and out of the school. I asked Cal this, and I will ask you this, and I'll tell you what Cal's answer was. I said, to today's young people who are looking for a career, the 16, 17, 18-year-old who thinks I might be a pretty good journalist as I grow up, I asked Cal, and I'm going to ask you, I asked Cal, I said, would you encourage younger kids to get into journalism? And Cal's answer was no. And his answer was very simply because journalism is what used to be considered a higher calling, but there's simply not enough of it anymore, and you're going to have a hard time finding a job if you walk out of college with a journalism degree. Your thoughts?
I feel like media is fragmented these days, and I feel like the definition of journalism even is changing. It becomes someone who's mic'd up and walking around with a camera, their phone, 24/7. And there are areas areas of the economy that sort of reward you for monetizing yourself, monetizing your daily experiences. You get enough hits on YouTube, suddenly you've got a career. It encourages more and more personal exploits, I guess. Does that count as journalism? I'm not sure. I'm kind of on the fence about it. But I do think young people are being trained in a way to think about story and narrative just by the media they consume and the media they put out. We're not just all consumers anymore. We're also producers. The definition of journalism may change as more and more people come of age in the internet era, in the social media era, and maybe they'll teach me what journalism is or can be. Maybe I'll learn new things from them as they come into this field. I'd welcome that kind of interaction.
I still think journalism is a higher calling. I always have been. Of course, I'm a different generation than a lot of people, but that was something growing up. To be a good accredited journalist who was able to give people the news was one of those jobs that people wanted to have because of its because it was a higher calling. We're still okay, aren't we?
I feel that way, but I feel like, you know, if you are a new person coming into the journalism field, approaching it with empathy and approaching it with the understanding of where the other person stands, what kind of impacts he might have with that big story or that big hit video or the viral discovery that you had that went out and propagated itself across Facebook. Understanding those impacts and realizing that it's a responsibility, not just a privilege, to be able to create content and gather facts and construct a narrative. It's something that you have to really take seriously. It's something you have to, if there were a Hippocratic oath for journalism, I would take it.
Many journalists have a specialty. When I first got to know Jefferson, as we mentioned 20 or so years ago when he first came out from the land of Lincoln, you wrote entertainment pieces. You wrote feature stories for Go Magazine, for the Wenatchee World, and you would come in and do your radio bit with me, which was a lot of fun. And now you are a straight hard news, kind of the police blotter kind of guy with the occasional feature story that we very much enjoy. How did that transition happen?
Well, before I came to Wenatchee, I was in fact a hard news reporter working in the state capitol in Illinois, and so I had that background beforehand. Entertainment was actually the deviation from the norm for me, and then moving back gradually into hard news or into daily, how different levels of government affect our lives, that kind of coverage. That was just sort of a return to form. The real interesting change for me has been learning about how to manage video, how to spend time working on a video piece and delivering news in a video format, which I'm not used to. There was always some kind of a friction there between the two fields. But I'm learning, and I hope getting better.
What newspapers do you read?
Let's see. New York Times online, Guardian online, very good. Occasionally Seattle Times when it comes across. Like a lot of people, though, I'm kind of troubled by paywalls. You don't necessarily want to be spending nickels and dimes every day just to get a little bit of news that feels like it, if it affects all of us, it should be more freely accessible. So I try to consume as much news as I can, and I do get a lot of news from social media, I'll admit that. But you can't just read the headline, you got to click the link and go there.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of paywalls. If they're a legitimate news source that has been around for a very long time, who more often than not is accurate, I have no problem paying for it. I don't at all. I subscribe to the New York Times as well, and I don't have any issue with that at all. One last question for you before I cut you loose. Advice for the young journalist out there. The first rule of thumb to be a good journalist is to be curious. If you don't care what's going on, there's no point in getting into it. But we need journalists. We're not going to be around forever. Certainly I'm not. Advice for the young journalist out there who may want to get into what you do.
Read. It doesn't matter what you read, just read. Become good at writing by reading. More and more, I see it with my own kids. There's the temptation just to succumb to this video is all I need, or this is all I need to consume to know, or I can do my research online on Wikipedia really fast. But reading a narrative, reading a well-crafted story of any kind is going to be the thing that helps you iron out your technique and become the best journalist that you could seek to be.
As I like to remind people, growing up in a very large family, dinner was at 5 o'clock, the televisions were turned off, the phones were turned off, we sat around the table, we ate dinner, and we discussed our daily lives and our issues of the day.